All right, welcome everyone. This is the 2025 building season for me. Just a recap of 24 high voltage number 10, which we built in the last series. Turned out to be a pretty good performer. A little disappointed I couldn't use it at the Nats. It just wasn't ready trim wise. Had to go through multiple challenges of getting the trim to fly the way I wanted to fly. But at the end of the season, it won the last two contests that it was in. And won pretty well and flew very well as well. But a bunch of work and, turned out to be a pretty good successful project. Diving into a lot of composite technology with it. Learned a lot from it. So we're going to start off with the 25 plane, which is going to be very similar to the 24 plane, number 10. So number 11 will be similar. However, this one will be a full take apart. So I'll be going over how I do take apart hardware. So we're pretty much starting on day one. The only thing I have built for it so far is a stab, which I'll take down and show you. This is the stab I have. It happens to, this one weighs, believe it or not, about 1.6 ounces. This is probably the lightest stab I've ever built. Very rigid. Used composite technology to do it. So it came out pretty good. So we'll be using that stab. But today we're going to be working on the fuselage sides. I got to form them up to put them in the molds. This is the mold I made last year. A little bit skinnier type fuselage. A little narrow appearance. We'll be molding the canopy in place as well. So today we're going to kind of go through and we're going to shape at least one fuselage side. And the other thing we'll work on today is the wing skins for the molds. I'll show how I piece the wing skins together. Do it a little differently. Works pretty good for me. But so we start here with we have the male plug, which we're going to shape the balsa around. This male plug was also used to make the female molds. Unfortunately, it's all in one piece, so I can only mold half a fuselage side at a time because it has to dry. But we're starting out with some 1/32 sheet. Pretty light. This is probably 10-pound wood. So it's actually heavier, but it's very thin with a 32nd. But again, with the composite technology, it's going to allow me to use much thinner material that's lighter and pretty available to get. So we're going to get started. First things first, we got to cut the size. I bought these already pre-glued skins. They're 9 inches. You can get them from National Balsa. I just wanted to check out and see what kind of product they sent. It's actually pretty good. The seams are good. It's all glued together. Saves me a step. And the price was reasonable. All right. So what we'll start out doing is we'll draw a center line. These are also 48-inch sheets. My 48-inch ruler. Somewhere I have a 48-inch ruler. So what you'll kind of do here is you want to kind of trim off the sheet so it's close. You want it to be able to wrap around halfway. So what I'll do is kind of just looking at it, I'll measure a couple points on it. Starting from where the center line is, there's a center line mark on here, and I'll wrap my tape measure. 2, 3. So 9.5, so 6.5 inches there. The canopy is probably the highest piece. So that's about 7-ish. So what I'll do is I'll draw a center line on first, and then we'll go from the center line back and forth. So they're about 9-inch skins, 4.5. 4.5. So it is December here. It's actually been really cold, so I haven't been doing any flying. I was hoping to get in at least one more for the year. However, that doesn't look like it's going to happen. So I mean, for me last year, the stunt season was, looking back on it, was actually pretty good. I went down to Joe Knoll in early May, and I finished third behind Derek Berry and Dave Fitzgerald. So that's always good when you can be right up with those guys. Then in June, I went to Brodak, and I was able to win Brodak again, which was really cool. And I had taken a plane. I had taken high voltage number 9, which is the one that lost shed its wing on top 20 day in 2022. I was able to rebuild it, and it was really great to be able to take that plane up for its first contest back from being repaired and win with it. It was really nice. And for me, the Nat's a little bittersweet. I ended up 8th. I flew good all week. I flew high voltage number 8, which was another one of those success stories, I guess. That plane had lost its nose when the upline snapped and we were practicing late in 23. So a little redemption will bring it back to life, and it flew very well. And I was only a few points out of 5th place. I wasn't that far off. I think my first flight on top 20 day kind of did me in a little bit. It wasn't my best flight. It was good. It was just a little inconsistent in some spots. Second flight was probably one of the better flights I've flown during the season, and the judges rewarded me for it, so it was pretty good. Then from there, I went to the Northeast Regional, the Pampa Northeast Regional, and I was able to win there on what I'll say is a cold, rainy weekend, which was pretty challenging to say the least. But a good time was pretty much had by many folks there. But it was a great contest, a lot of fun, and it's pretty good. Then luckily I was able to free myself up to go down to Philly and fly with the Philly Flyers. Those guys are always a good bunch of guys to fly with. Had a lot of fun there, and I was able to take high voltage 10 and win there as well. So overall pretty good season. I ended up flying 3 different planes during the contest season, and each one had some success, so it was pretty good. All right. I need a ruler. All right, so we're going to cut the piece to size. And it's okay to be oversized on this piece, because what you'll do is, if you mold it around, after it dries, you can just trim it down to size. I do have a pattern, I think. Hold on. Well, I have a pattern for the back half. I don't know what the front half pattern is. Take a look. Oh, I think I found it. Alright, so luckily I have a pattern which kind of helps me a little bit. You see I kind of drew it up in 2 halves, and if you look, kind of mimics what you need. Even down to how to cut the front, kind of trimmed out, if you can see, to cut the front off a little bit. So we'll use this, and this is the back half piece. So we'll kind of use this to guide us a little bit here. will do we'll just trace around it. What I like about the template is it kind of gives me the nose configuration, which is a little bit of a challenge to be able to get in there because of the way the curve goes, but look at that. Does that make sense? Alright, so then what you end up is, now we'll trim it out. So I did get some comments on some of the videos, and people were looking for how to do take-apart hardware, so I will definitely cover take-apart hardware on this one, for sure, and how I do it. And then again, with control line stunt, there are many ways to, what I'll say, skin the cat here. You know, these cutouts don't have to be perfect. You can use a rule around it. I just try to stay to the outside of the line. Alright. There you kind of have a fuselage side. I'm just curious to how much it weighs. I got a scale right here, so let's see. So right there is 105. So one outside, which is not bad. Just looking at it, yeah, it's going to form nicely when it's wet. It'll come nicely around. So what we do is we will wet this, and then we'll wrap it with an ace bandage. Okay, not bad. Not bad. Not bad, not bad, not bad. Okay. All right. Just making sure I got it lined up good. All right, so we're ready to get going here. All right, so what you need is some ace bandages. I use just plain old Windex. And I will wet both sides. I'll really wet up the nose area. Really want to make it pliable. So put a lot of water, especially the canopy area, the nose area, where there's a lot of shape. You can use hot water. Some people use vinegar. I've had good success just using Windex. But again, it's really up to what you want to use. And what I'll do is I'll start at the back. And I'll kind of wrap it in two directions. I'll start right about here somewhere, make sure it's in the middle. Make sure we can get right to the edge. So what you do is you just kind of wrap it, lap it, pull it tight around each one. The back half is usually not that tricky. It's the front half that's really tricky to do. That's where to kind of get different curves. All right. Alright, so now we're going to work on the front half. This is where it becomes a little more challenging, and you really got to get it right. Being really wet, it forms over the canopy nicely. Okay. So we'll go we'll start in the middle and work our way around. I want to start to wrap the other way because I want to be able to pull up around the canopy and not have it deform there. So these are one of those things that's always good when you have a helper. But if you don't have a helper, you kind of just use your benches to close it up. So this is where it's a little tricky around the canopy. And I'm really going to pull it super tight around there because I wanted to make sure I don't get a buckle in it. And sometimes you'll hear the wood crack, and that's okay. You just glue that seam back together after it dries with some CA. So the other tricky part is going to be the actual nose. But being such thin wood, it allows me to really pull it tight. And you just gotta watch. This is where you can get some wrinkles in the wood. The wood will actually wrinkle, especially around the edges. So what you do is kind of just keep smoothing it over, walking the wrinkle out. And if you get a wrinkle, it's no big deal. What you can do is after it dries, you just cut it, pie splice it in, as I would say. All right. Having a tape dispenser like this is helpful in times because you can do it with one-hand operation. All right. That's kind of it. What you do is you'll kind of just let it dry. I happen to be working in the boiler room, so it's nice. So I'll just put the piece up against the boiler, and if it runs all day, it'll be dry. Like later tonight, it'll be ready. All right, so that's the first one. All right, so now I'm going to go on to the wing skins for the wings. Let me get the molds out so I get the measurements. Again, when it dries, I'll do the same thing for the other side. It's pretty much the mirror image. You just do it the other way. Don't make two outboard sides or two inboard sides. Luckily, I haven't done that, but I almost did a couple times. So, all right. So this, here's my wing mold. I've shown this before. The mold. This is the wing that I built high voltage 10 off of. I used it to mold the skins. One of my first videos kind of shows me laying ribs out in it. So this plane, this high voltage 11, I'm going to use the same airfoil. I'm going to try to make a ribless wing. I got some ideas using some of the some composite stuff that I think I can pretty much make a wing without ribs in it, or minimal ribs in it, to really just keep the structure. We will go through that on this video. So there's a little bit of experiment, so hopefully it works. If it doesn't, I do have a backup plan. I do have rib templates I can cut ribs for it. But yeah, to start out, so you're gonna make the wing skin, so you got to know what the measurements are. And what I like to do is kind of just know what it is. About 10.5 is a good number there, and about 8.5. So what I'll actually do is I'll use my table and draw out what the wing skin should look like. Where it is, I need a Sharpie. Oh. And really, we're gonna go through some wood selection as well. Let's see overall. 30 and a half roughly. Alright, what I'll do is, again, I use my table to kind of lay out what the template should look like, and I do it in both directions. And I do this so when I glue it up, I know which the outside and which is the inside. Doesn't have to be perfect. This is just kind of cutting down some of the excess, getting the skins to be right. Alright, so now alright, so wood selection. So I'm going to be using 16th. I'm going to trim it down a little bit. I'm going to cut it down to probably, so 16th is about 60 to 70 thousandths a sheet. I'm going to cut it down to about 40 thousandths a sheet, save a little weight. Again, with composite technology, you can kind of get away with thinner wood. And you can save some weight and not lose strength. So let me get the 16th out. Alright. So I mark all my balsa. I weight it. I color code it so it's easy to kind of find. And what I'm looking for is 4 and 5 pound wood. Let me just see. So even 5.5 per cubic foot. So get down to that. Alright, so alright, so put that over there. So I need 3-inch and 4-inch sheets I'll use. Let me get the 3-inch now. All right. $66,000, $80,000. Wow. I got some sheets. All right. So now we'll kind of go through it, looking for if I have any sea grain. I like to use sea grain on the trailing edge. It's a good piece of stiff. Sometimes I'll use a little bit heavier sheet on the trailing edge, and I'll use a 4-inch sheet on the front, and then I'll run a 3-inch sheet in the middle. Sometimes I can use all 4-inch sheets, but I have both, so I'm going to go through it and see which one makes the most sense. So this piece here is a really light piece. It's A grain, and this is really good for like the leading edge because it'll curve easily without a problem. So that's a good sheet there. One. Now let's see what else we got here. Oh man, the dust killed me. These are really light sheets. These are all 4 pound, 10 grams. Just looking for some 5th trailing edge piece. Okay, so that's one. That's 2 for that wing. Alright, so I like that sheet there. So what I'll do is I'll mark the sheet. I'll cut the excess off. Alright, the other thing I will do is I will trim it to make sure that the edges are perfectly straight. That's the one thing, if you want good seams, it's a pretty straight piece. So you take off little slivers, you just put a nice straight edge on it. Because you want a perfectly flat, straight edge, like that. And the same thing you want with this edge here, because this is what's going to make your seams perfect, not pop through and everything else. All right. All right, good. All right, so the next thing we'll do is we will cut this piece to size. Now what I do is I kind of just line it up a little bit, and I'll take my straight edge and I'll run it straight across my edge here. It's kind of why I use my table. And you gotta be careful as you cut down through here, because you are hanging over an edge. So just with some caution. And again, you can sand it off. You can sand it off square anyway. And then I'll take my other edge here and go with my other edge, and I'll cut it. All right. All right. Last thing I will do is I will true up this edge. Pretty pretty straight piece. Alright, so now alright, so the filler piece in the middle. Okay, we'll take it. Here's what we'll do. We'll trim it off with a straight edge on it.